Map on the Train by Max Jones. Episode 1.
The end of his final week touring the Highlands. On this, his last day, Peter decided to take the train from Fort William to Mallaig, to a place where he hoped he could retrace his father's footsteps. Alone. In peace. His sadness at the loss of his father had remained undimmed by the passing weeks. As usual, he'd been ridiculously early for the train, and now he waited at Fort William for their departure. As he gazed through the window at the masses of people coming and going, the familiar panic, the feeling of being overwhelmed stirred within him. It began as a disruption deep inside, a tightening of both stomach and throat. Sweating would follow, then shakes, and soon he'd be gulping down bile as it rose into his mouth. He retreated from the view, from the here and now, and focused instead on the ancient, fragile map spread out on the table before him. With a breath of relief, he felt the sharp edge of panic begin to blunt and withdraw from his guts as he began to plot the route he would walk that afternoon. He heard shouting and glanced back to the platform where two small boys of about 8 or 9, one blonde and the other dark-haired, ran and dodged between irritable passengers, a couple of whom aimed angry swipes at their retreating heads. Behind them, an enormous woman marched, into whose wake a thin girl pushed a buggy in which sat a plump baby. The girl was almost invisible behind bags, some hanging off the buggy, and the rest slung around her body.
Janice, I've got to check the carrier for Davy's shoes.
The thin girl yelled.
No, it's okay, Sandra hen. They're in the black bag on the buggy. There's Sandra, on the buggy.
Oh, okay.
Sandra checked the bag and then looked up and nodded. He noted that the huge woman called Janice didn't break her stride. She was tall and wide, with heavy, drooping belly and loose, swinging breasts, which bounced and clashed as she marched, fighting under the shapeless brown dress stretching to her ankles. Her hair was also brown and tied back in a ponytail. She came to rest in front of Peter's carriage window, glancing around.
Rory! Callum! Where are you?
Just follow the noise,
Peter thought. On her feet he noticed a pair of dirty ancient trainers, and she was sweating in the late summer heat. Her forehead and the dress below her armpits were wet.
Yuck. No father round then. Typical.
He shook his head. The boys now galloped imaginary horses around in circles, whooping and yelling as they headed back to Janice.
How could you? How could you just stand there and ignore those two little bastards?
He watched as the boys got in everyone's way and took over the platform. People had to stop suddenly as first one and then the other swooped past, ruining the peace and quiet.
Trip over the backs, you little shits.
Sandra came to a rest next to Janice, who glanced at her and smiled.
Christ, it looks like you're sizing up to eat her.
He murmured into the glass, then chuckled at his own joke. Sandra was about 12 or 13, with short red hair. Her cheap, black-framed glasses were thick-lensed and too heavy for her small and delicate face. Her clothes seemed to be that of a much younger girl, a neat grey pinafore dress over a checked blouse and shiny, black shoes with a gold buckle and white, frilly ankle socks. But there was something else about her, a stillness, a calmness. She was present, and yet apart from the family's noise and disruption. Observing the way she placed the bags in an exact line next to her on the platform, standing straight once the task were completed, minus any unnecessary movement, he saw an echo of himself. Everything about her was economical, purposeful. Her eyes found Peter's, and he quickly looked away. She saw him, almost as if...
Rory! Callum! Here! Now!
The boys raced up to her. The younger blonde one, Callum, forgot his horse game and stood quietly by her side. Rory stayed in character and continued to struggle with his skittish horse, moving up and down, his arms holding imaginary reins. He turned repeated circles, shouting,
"Well, boy, I cannot control him."
The baby, plump and pristine in a spotless right prompt suit, leaned out of his buggy to look. He smiled, giggled, and waved his arms up and down before sitting back. Sandra reached forward and gently stroked his dark hair. As a whistle blew, Sandra quickly gathered up the various bags and carriers, stacking the buggy and herself as before. Janice carried nothing. She grasped Callum's hand and bellowed,
Right, we're away. You two get on. Rory? Rory, get off that bloody horse and walk normally. Sandra! Sandra! Get him off that bloody horse so we can get on.
Sandra let go of the buggy and, laden though she was, stepped over to Rory. She spoke once. Then he shook his head. She cuffed him sharply on the ear and dragged him towards her. The boy squealed and then yelled in a high-pitched sort of American accent,
Now I've lost my horse. Come back, horsey! Horsey!
He didn't even give his horse a name.
Lack of authenticity always offended Peter. Rory went to run after his stampeding horse until Sandra's hand shot out with the speed of a cobra striking and caught his shirt. She hoisted him back. The bag swung heavily forward around her thin body with the sudden movement, threatening to overbalance her. But as if she already knew this would happen, she had already compensated for it. A foot swiftly extended to brace herself. Peter silently admired the action. There followed a brief, heated discussion, Sandra's finger pointing close to Rory's face, and then he sulkily fell in line behind the buggy.
They should be on a Channel 5 documentary.
Peter watched the procession approach the train doors. Then he realized they were getting on his carriage. No. He looked quickly around. Over half of the seats were empty. They were going to sit in here. They were going to sit in here. Their noise. Their chaos.
No. Oh, Christ, please, no. Stay calm. Breathe slowly, remember. You control how you feel. Step out of the situation. Think of something else. Think. Your plans. What are your plans? Think. Mallaig. Stop overnighting Mallaig. Alone. Peace. No conversation. Solitary walk. Single room tonight. En suite. Must be en suite. Oh, they've vanished into the train. Moments. They'll be here in moments. Check the map. Check the fucking map. Lines. Numbers. Convert them. Picture them. Tight lines. Steep rise. Steep big rise.
Peter's fingers traced the lines of the Ordnance Survey map as he spoke, desperate to build a picture of a real, living landscape. Desperate to distract his panicking brain and stop it crashing towards panic and fear.
So, what? Yeah. Just outside of Mallaig. Check it from the train coming in. That will test you. It will be... what? What will it be? Think. It might be rocky, slippery underfoot, black slate, sliding away over the edge, taking you over. No. Not like that time in Ben Nevis. Not dangerous this time. Good this is. Good. Breathe. Then open plains. Big, wide, open plains. Under the viaduct. Safe. Around the Jacobite monument. The lock is deep. Very deep. Underwater escarpment near the centre. Look how it drops away.
His fingers traced over the tightly packed lines as he pictured the almost vertical underwater sides of the loch, leading downwards into a pitch black at the bottom. Peaceful. Cold and quiet. Dark oblivion.
And on the other side, a slow, shallow depression, leading the unwary forwards, slowly getting deeper, then a sudden drop to the deepest pool. Like another cliff edge, it's offset, in line with the smaller mountain. Line up with it. Imagine the depths you can't see. Imagine it drained. No, stupid. It's a sea lock. You're going to drain the sea? No. Walk from the monument facing west. Good. Good. Breathe. Peace. Breathe.
The doors at the end of the carriage crashed open, and Janice forced her large body into the narrow entrance.
Off! Bloody doorway! Sandra! Sandra! Be careful of the doorway. It's awfully narrow.
Her loose, shapeless brown dress became trapped between her stomach and the doorframe. It stretched tightly to reveal rolls of belly fat. With a final grunting effort, she pushed her way through. It was a performance. She turned and shouted behind her.
Sandra! Sandra! Strips your clothes off your body, it does. I'm not sure I'm still a virgin. You'll have an arse of a job to get that pushchair through with those bags. Make sure you don't push wee Davy through first. He'll lose a limb.
Though Sandra was just behind her in the vestibule, Janice yelled as if she were at the other end of the train. The scattering of passengers looked at her with horrified fascination. With Janice now in the carriage, a procession emerged rowdily behind her. The boys aimed their guns and shot randomly at each other and any passenger they passed. This was more intimidating than it may sound, as the boys pressed up close to their victims, waited silently until they got eye contact, and then shot them in the face. Miniature executioners. A pretty young woman sat alone halfway down the carriage. She wore a headset and was looking out of the window, thus missing the approaching chaos. She turned to find Callum with a gun held inches away from her face, leaning over the table.
Jesus!
She yelled.
Bang!
Callum then began to laugh as he slid off the seat and onto the floor. Rory quickly pulled him up, and they stood aside.
No, she's pretty. Purdy.
Callum corrected.
Yeah, Purdy. Anyway, you don't shoot the purdy ones. You make her your woman. How? Well, you just... you have to... I don't know. It's soppy stuff. Kissy kissy. Smoochy smoochy.
Rory imitated soppy stuff for Callum, kissing his hand sloppily, whilst unaccountably doing a hip-wiggling dance around him. Callum pulled his hand away and wiped it on the nearest seat. He looked at the pretty young woman uncertainly. She laughed.
Oh.
Maybe when you're a bit older, cowboy.
She laughed again and then blew Callum a kiss, then put her earphones back in.
Aww.
Callum went red before turning to make a big gesture of returning her kiss, which the woman caught.
Mwah.
Then the killing of the remaining passengers resumed.
Bang, bang,
They
bang,
shouted
bang.
and gave out high-pitched screams as imaginary bullets ricocheted and struck them. Rory added to the
Bang,
performance
bang,
by
bang,
falling in
bang.
slow motion, bouncing off the seats and writhing on the carriage floor, holding his stomach and shouting.
Ah!
Behind them, wee Davy in his buggy and Sandra remained on the other side of the door. Was the baby hers, Peter wondered? Janice was making slow and, it seemed, deliberately laboured progress up the carriage, fanning herself with a timetable and grasping at seat backs to pull herself forwards.
Oh! It's awfully hot in here. Sandra! Sandra! I'm feeling faint. I'm awfully sweaty. Sandra! Sandra! Sweaty! Bring the wet wipes.
Sandra looked up briefly at Janice with a confused expression. Peter watched, fascinated, as she quickly sized up the doorway and then dropped the bag she was carrying, plucked the baby from the pram and sat him on the floor. Wee Davy looked around briefly, waved his arms up and down jerkily and overbalanced, rolling onto his side. Sandra surveyed him, then, satisfied he was safe, took the 4 bags hanging from the pushchair and stored them in the luggage rack. She kicked a lever on the pram and it sank quickly onto itself, then stowed it next to the bags. It all took less than 3 minutes. Luggage stored, she hoisted the baby onto where her hip might one day appear and followed the leader, wet wipes in hand. They all advanced down the carriage towards Peter. Peter breathed deliberately, every breath thought about and formed, lungs expanding and contracting in his mind's eye. He turned to stare out of the window. The platform was now empty, as the train was due to depart. His map remained open and almost covering the table. That would put them off. No room to put all of their rubbish. His space. His map on his table. Walk past. Walk past. Walk past.
Sandra! Sandra! Where do you want to sit? There's a table for 4 here.
Peter saw her reflection in the glass, and she saw he was looking at her. Their eyes met. She paused, smiled.
Perfect.
You have been listening to The Map on the Train, featuring Kevo Snell as Peter, Margaret Forster as Janice, Emily Toward as Sandra, Tony Weaver as Callum and Rory, Phil Jones as the Colonel, Mand Austin as Esme, Sheila Jennings as the young woman, and Max Jones as the narrator. The Map on the Train was written by Max Jones and recorded at the Old Nick Theatre Gainsborough by Sam Daniel. Original music was composed and performed by Gribbles. The editor was Gordon Craig. This has been a Workhouse Players production.